Hello everyone, welcome back to Mixbus TV. Hope you're having a great day. Today with me, I have the pleasure to have Daniel Graves from Aesthetic Perfection. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So today we are talking about Spotify, revenue, record labels, and so on, right?
A very interesting topic, I think.
Absolutely. And this is because, well, not only you and me, we knew each other. I mix a song, you were in, but you did a clip, a video on your pages, and I found that very, very interesting. It was a very great analysis of the Spotify revenue subject. So, and I'm pretty sure my audience, the audience, is going to be, very interested in your take, your experience, because Aesthetic Perfection is a big industrial band, industrial pop band, and all the numbers. Before we start, please check the info box down below for our mixing courses on Pro Mix Academy, free plugins, special discounts and offers. And if you missed the biggest event on the channel, the remix contest for my artist Bella Kelly's latest single, Heartbreak Motel, it's up and running with over $30,000 in prizes between plugins and hardware. Daniel, are you gonna do a remix?
I don't know. With a prize package like that, I may have to.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, let's get to the subject. Spotify revenue, everybody's complaining about the fact that Spotify pays artists so little. We'll start from here. Just like you, I used to be a musician in the early 2000s, and that era was the era of the CDs. And your analysis compared, if I don't remember wrong, how much money we were making in those years and the years of the CD compares to how much Spotify pays nowadays. And there might not be the big difference that people think there is, right?
Yeah, I mean, so the video that I made that you're referencing was actually like a TikTok. I started getting like into TikTok this year. It's like my lockdown passion project. And, I see a whole lot of my colleagues sort of talking about how Spotify is incredibly unfair, how they're not earning enough money to make a living from it. And while I'm certainly sympathetic to this situation, I felt like it would be maybe useful for me as an artist who does make a living, not entirely through streaming, but a large portion of my income comes from streaming. I thought it might be useful for me to sort of share my perspective and really sort of put my money where my mouth is and show people exactly how many streams I got, how much money I got from it, and how that sort of compares to the sort of golden age of the music business, where everybody's like, oh, that's when artists really got compensated, fairly, which is just completely false. Incorrect. Yeah,
absolutely. And I can attest. I mean, my experience, I was with a record for the first album and with a record for the second one, and it was an absolute nightmare.
I started kind of becoming a musician around the time of Napster, right? So I've been a music fan, all throughout the early 90s, buying CDs and all that kind of stuff. But when I really started trying to like get my music career off the ground, it was during the time of Napster. And so I actually like embraced the idea of sort of sharing music for free. And it was only a couple of years later when I got signed to record labels and kind of saw how that business like really works, the way that artists are manipulated, I think is the best way of describing it, into signing contracts that are just completely counter to their best interests, right? And I played that game for so many years, like trying to find a way to make a living off of selling physical copies of music. And it was only when I sort of saw the writing on the wall that, CDs are really done for.
Yeah.
And decided to step away from my management, my record labels, everybody, and say, I'm going to do this on my own, and I'm not going to worry too much about what I'm going to earn from the music directly, but start focusing on, other revenue streams like, merchandise, touring, crowdfunding, all of that kind of stuff, that I really sort of actually started making money off my music, which was the real irony, because I stopped trying to sell my music and just sort of thought about my music in another way and sort of allowed streaming to kind of do what it does.
Yeah, I think what people get mad at it, so to speak, is that they see these big numbers. You know, Spotify's worth $60,000 billion, and Sony Music and Universal Record made last year. I don't remember. They were making. I cited an article that was saying like they were making something about 10.4 million per hour from streaming. You know, and when people see these big numbers, they say, "Hold on a second, you guys don't even make music. I make music, and I get like $100 for like all my streamings." And I think this is where somewhat there is the disconnect. And on the other hand, I feel like can we say that streaming kind of saved the music industry, for as evil as it is, from the illegal downloads of the Napster years?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things to unpack there. I think first of all, you're right, and everybody's right when they take a look at the actual money that is being earned by the labels and by Spotify, even though Spotify doesn't turn a profit, right? Like we know that that's just sort of that's clever bookkeeping, right? Yeah. That's not like, oh, our company is about to go bankrupt. That's not not the situation that Spotify is in. That's totally fair to criticize them for that, and they should be criticized for that, and we should, as artists, be paid more money for this, the streams that we generate. And it is absolutely kind of shameless that they are now trying to even reduce the streaming royalties further. So when I talk about how like I embrace streaming, it's really not let's say, it's not me going on the side of Spotify. It's me sort of trying to be an advocate for myself and say, look, this is the world that we live in, and I need to figure out how to survive within it. And certainly we need to ask for our fair share and fight for our fair share. But while we're doing that, let's figure out ways to maximize our earning potential as artists so that we can actually make music that we can earn money off of, right? So yeah, I mean that is totally valid, and it's also fair to say that like, okay, I'm an older artist who had a built-in fan base, but there's a lot of kids coming up that have never had any label support in their entire careers, and they're like way bigger than I am because they use TikTok better than I can, right? So it's like these kids are making way more money off of endorsements and all of that kind of stuff. So certainly my existing audience has helped me, but I also know a lot of artists who are way bigger than I am, who are not able to make a living off of what they're doing because they're not taking advantage of the streaming model, or let's say making the best out of it. Yeah,
which is basically, if we take a look at the market, everybody's doing it. Even the top 10 artists. Like if we take a look at all the artists, they all have a side, so to speak, a side business, but it's not the side business. Side business is almost the music, because they only have a clothing line, a makeup line, a beer, brand or wine, all that. That's how the music industry works, right? It's
always worked that way. It's always been that way. I mean, you go back 20, 30 years and you've got pop stars, releasing their own, I don't know about makeup lines, but definitely their own fragrances, right?
Absolutely.
I can remember the Britney Spears fragrance and all that kind of stuff. Like Rihanna just became, I think, one of the first musician billionaires, and almost none of that money came from her music.
Yeah.
It came from her endorsements and all of that kind of stuff that was absolutely built up and supported by her music. Her music made that possible, but it wasn't directly earned from her music itself.
Rihanna has Fenty, which is her line, which is super, super popular. It is like that. Like today, especially, I think what is hard and what people don't understand is once you're done doing your music and for how beautiful that piece of art it is, then unless you have a team behind you, that's where the real work starts for you. Because there's the marketing and the advertisement and, all that. And that's just as important. And everything starts with the music. And we all know if the music is not there, aside from, industry plants, artists, you're not going anywhere, and we all agree on that. But then there's all the rest, and I think, like you mentioned, TikTok and all the other social platform today is a double-edged sword, because everybody has the possibility, so there's a lot of competition out there, but also there's a lot more opportunities to make money. Can you could you break your revenue like you did in that video, so people get a little bit of like an idea of the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, so I earn from streaming, I would say, on average, $2,000 to $2,300 a month, which is really not that bad, considering the fact that I don't control like 80% of my discography, right? So I only get to control the music that I've released post 2015. So from 2016 on, we're talking about one record and maybe 15, 20 singles. Like,
wow,
that's the revenue that I'm earning from that small amount of music. Like, everything else that I have released in my career is controlled by other entities.
Wow, so I didn't know that. I didn't think about it. I mean, I knew in the back of my head, but I didn't think about it. That is pretty impressive. Like you said, like, even if it's not in the in the big pictures, like, a lot of money, it is enough money to keep an artist going and then attach all other things that
I mean, and I also have I have a Patreon. I have close to 700 supporters. I make anywhere from like this is all public, by the way.
Right.
Like I fully believe in transparency. Like, I don't hide the amount of money that I get like on my Patreon or anything like that, because I want people to understand how this all works. I mean, this is not all money that I keep, by the way. It's like I earn this every month, but I'm almost always turning around and reinvesting it into, the band. So then with Patreon, it's something like between $4,000 and $4,500 per month.
Right.
And then I also have web stores, which can, go anywhere from like $200 a month to like $3,000 a month. And it's just kind of like varies depending on, what time of year it is, if I've been releasing new merchandise, all that kind of stuff. So, I don't have any like other like big crazy revenue streams. It's like, I don't have my own. Yeah, I don't have my own fragrance line or anything like that. I think nobody wants to smell like I do. At least they shouldn't.
The pattern mixing that I just saw in your picture, which was completely different for me. No, but that's what I liked about your video. You were completely transparent. And do you remember the comparison that you did in that video between how much we were making? I put myself in, because those were the years, with CDs compared how much we make with each single stream. That was very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is something that I've been trying to sort of like make my, colleagues and friends in the industry kind of like understand, because, I've got a lot of friends who are still sort of in this headspace where they think that streaming is the devil.
Yeah.
And, that this is actually what caused me to break this down. I've made social media posts like this before, and I just figured that maybe I would try to like get hip and make it a TikTok, right? So you have to remember that the average royalty rate for a single CD sale for an artist, like, it excludes mechanical royalties, whatever.
Yeah.
But so the standard royalty that an artist would get for one CD sale is $1.70.
Okay.
And if you imagine that an album has 10 songs on it, it's like, that is what? 17 cents per song.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That doesn't sound so great anymore, does it?
Yeah.
And then when you stop to think about the fact that it takes only like 42, 43 streams to earn 17 cents, you're like, oh, yeah. I mean, it's really not so different. And one of the things that I didn't cover in my TikTok, because obviously, people have short attention spans these days. But I would like to make a video or a TikTok about it in the future, is recoupable costs, because nobody, like, you're getting paid $170 for every CD sale, but don't forget that you owe the label tons and tons of money for all that marketing and recording and just every penny that they've invested into you, and probably some other, secret expenses that they just sort of create out of thin air.
Absolutely. And then there's the when you have the physical media like the CD. I remember in my time with the big labels, there were like the broken CDs,
Yeah.
you know, and then
and
the
labels still
returns.
charge breakage.
Yeah, it's breakage.
Labels still charge breakage on a digital product.
Yeah, they still do. They still do.
And so what I think the thing that I'm trying to like, you know, explain to people is that it's not, again, yes, streaming, Spotify, all those people, they should pay us more, but they're not like the real sort of boogeymen in the story. It's the record labels.
Yeah.
And of course the record labels are sneaking in with Spotify, and they get, you know, sort of like market share, like they get all these sort of like back end deals that don't include like the royalties and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, all that shady stuff happens.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, okay, how do I as an artist survive in this world? How do I take advantage of what I am getting? Because like you said, streaming did sort of, I don't know if it saved us, but it certainly allowed artists to start making money off their music again after the sort of, you know, Napster, LimeWire, whatever crash.
No, it is interesting, and you open another can of worms here. I mean, Universal Record at some point, or maybe still now, we don't know, owns something about 10% of Spotify, and Sony owns another 8% of Spotify, and you know, the big labels basically own a big chunk of it. And this, of course, it's kind of a conflict of interest, because the money, so being part of the company that has to pay the artist and also the owner of basically those artists, it's safe to say, I mean, at least it's understandable if people ask, like, it's not like you're cutting my royalties on that end, because you're still making money because you own 10% of the company, which is, you know, we don't know, but it's probably the case. On top of that, you know, having this massive influence over the biggest still streaming service, which is Spotify, although some people see that is probably gonna change, I don't know, anytime soon, but is the fact that independent artists do not have access to the big playlists, which of course, you know, kind of halt the possibilities for smaller artists and up and coming artists to again earn a little more.
Look, it's imperfect, right? That there's never gonna be. I think that's the other thing. Like, at least, I don't know. You can call me a pessimist, or you can say that I'm jaded, but you know, I operate from the point of view that, like, it's never going to be perfect, right? There's always going to be this tension. There's always going to be something worth fighting for. But again, it's like, in the meantime, I gotta eat, you know, and I gotta keep going. I gotta keep making music and hopefully earning a living off of it. And yeah, of course, there's all of these like wild conflicts of interest, but I think that despite all of that, you know, as artists, we have so much more power and autonomy than we've ever had. You know, it's like, we don't have some cigar chomping executive like deciding whether or not our music gets to even come out at all. Yeah. Like, you think about, you know, 20, 30 years ago, where it's like a label would scoop up a band because they were getting some traction in their local scene, and then they would invest a bunch of money on them to record a record. And then they're like, you know what? We just don't actually think that this is going to sell. So we're just going to put the record on a shelf. You don't have the right to ever release it. And you can just basically go screw yourself. And you're like, but you just invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in me and my record. And they're like, I know. We don't care. For them, is a tax write-off. And that is exactly what happened to me with my first contract. I mean, I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry. No. At this point, I'm laughing about it, because at the end of the day, it was experience for me. You know, it taught me a lot, and it taught me how to protect now my artists from stuff like that. So I'm being, you know, I say everything happens for a reason, right? But those were the shelving years, they were called, and that's exactly what happened to me. Those golden, you know, years were not that golden unless you were one of the top 5 artists for a label. Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's like, you got to imagine like how many bands have the same story as you, right? Like, how often did the label route like work out? Like how many bands did that work out? Like what percentage of bands that got a record deal had like, you know, became Linkin Park or something like that? You know, you're talking 0.0001%. Like, and I think what so many people don't really realize about today is that like now you have the power to say, I'm going to record something and put it out. And yeah, there's a lot of weird barriers, like playlists and all this kind of stuff. Like I know I have to keep adding in these qualifiers. Like I get it. It's not perfect, but at least my music gets to come out. At least I can go put my music video on YouTube, send it to people. I can go to Instagram and like follow a bunch of people and beg them to listen to my new song. You know, like I can do that. But, you know, 20 years ago, the labels owned all of the channels for you to even like, if you could never even dream of anything like that.
You couldn't even record unless you had like an insane budget.
Yeah.
Well, there have been few cases in which who knows what happened. I remember one of the songwriter the contribute to Kylie Minogue disco album, which was top whatever. At the end of the day, she got something like £100.
Yeah.
But those are like, I think, cases that really who knows what happened. And like you mentioned before, I want to repeat that because it's kind of eye-opening, I think. To make the same amount of money that you were making as an artist with a CD, with one song, it would be about 40 streams.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You said in that video something that is even more eye-opening, which is that person, when they bought the CD, they owned the CD and they could play the songs as many times as they wanted. And this way, you go back and stream it again.
Forever.
Exactly.
I mean, potentially forever.
Yeah.
Like think about like your favorite CD. I'll bet you listen to it more than 42 times.
Oh,
you know?
Absolutely.
I think people need to focus on the long game a little bit, and I know that it's hard, you know, when you're not making a lot of money. Like, believe me, I know what it's like. I've been there and I've done that. But I think it's important to keep these things in mind and sort of like imagine this as like an investment in your future. And now I understand that like Spotify, what Apple Music, whatever, these things may not be around in 10, 20 years, but maybe that's 10 or 20 years of earning money off of it. And whatever comes after that, you still own your masters. You still own your publishing. You can now take your intellectual property and put it on the next big thing. And you can continue to earn money from it. And when you're on a label, you almost certainly don't own your masters. And if you're in a really bad shape, you don't even own your songs, right? Like they've sold your publishing, or you've sold your publishing away. One of the things that like really sort of opened my eyes about this whole situation is, you know, looking at people on VH1's Behind the Music, where it's like, yeah, man, these guys had millions of dollars and mansions and were, you know, riding around in limos and helicopters 24 hours a day and blah, 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 blah. And then it's like 10 years later, they were broke and they were living in their mom's basement. And it's like, what do you want? Do you want to make that like quick million, or do you want to sort of like slowly set yourself up to be living comfortably for the next 40 or 50 years? Yeah,
but this is also one of the reasons, because you and me, we see eye to eye on this one. I think we can a little bit blame the social media. They project this idea of overnight success, which happens. We've seen it. We've seen it happens, but many times the overnight success doesn't last. You know,
correct?
Because it comes fast and it goes fast. While something like you did as a musician, which is put in the work and just think that this is gonna be not an overnight success, but it's gonna be probably, you know, a long-term investment. And you use the word investment, which is important. I think people still think nowadays that you put your song out and someone is gonna see you and is gonna take you to top of the charts because you're so amazing, which again, it could happen, but it's probably once in a million. Like, you have more chances of winning the lottery, I think.
Yeah.
Because nowadays, how the label deal work, it's let's face it. it's not hard to find a record deal. It's gonna be a shitty deal though, where they own everything.
Yeah.
You get like 5% if you're lucky, and then if there's still advances given, you owe the label like so much money that you probably your next 10 years of earning are gonna go to them. Instead, I think people should see this whole matter as labels invest in small businesses. Like, for example, like you, right? They see an artist that is successful, right? And he already makes some money, so his small business work. And then they decide, okay, if I invest in this small business, then we can make it bigger together. They look at the numbers.
It's 100%. If you are really, really successful on your own, you have way more leverage. But I think a lot of people, they get to a certain point where they get label interest, not realizing that they don't have like the kind of power to really negotiate with them. And so then they end up getting shelved, because what I've sort of heard the new sort of strategy is to, for example, the way Justin Bieber got picked up. He was discovered by Usher on YouTube, and he sort of like covers a certain market share. Now what certain labels will do is, if they've got an artist who's in the Justin Bieber level, they will go and find all of the artists who could potentially come up and dethrone Justin Bieber, and then they just give them throw a couple $100,000 at them to make them sort of go away. They shelve them, they ruin their careers, and then they're like, we still got Justin Bieber, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me back then.
Yeah, and now we own you, and now you can just go away. I don't deny that even now I still have these like weird fantasies in my head of like checking my email, and it's like Universal, and they're like, hey man, we really love what you're doing, and we just love to partner up with you. Like, I of course I still get these like weird fantasies in my head, but I got to check myself and be like, no, because like 99% of the time they're just trying to screw you over.
Yeah.
Or, they're just going to roll the dice, or, maybe even if anybody at the label really believed in you, maybe next week they got fired or went to a different place, and now your only advocate at the label is gone. It's just such a risky endeavor where it's like, I'm just going to stay where I'm at.
No, and it's funny because even that happened to me. My guys got the A&R got fired, and that's why we couldn't even talk to the label.
No.
And it's funny because everything, like I did the whole thing. And it's funny because I remember the day that it kind of opened my mind, because I was in Helsinki playing at a big festival and in Finland, and in the backstage I made friends with Mortis, the industrial band, the old band, and and I was telling him my story, and he was like, and I was young and I didn't know anything, and he was already in the scene, he's been in the scene for years and years and years, and he was telling me like, you're not telling me anything new, this is what XXX record did with us. And I was like, really? And and from there, like, horror stories started pouring from every musician around us.
And the real sort of pity is that so many people go, well, that's major record labels. Like, indie labels would never do anything like that. And it's like, man, I have been signed to indie labels that have just like run me through the ringer. I released 3 records through a label. Never saw accounting. Never saw a penny, actually. So, and they were selling merchandise. They were like doing everything. And the thing is that like, yeah, I could probably like sue them and take them to court, but what would happen there? They'd probably just fudge the numbers and be like, well, yeah, I mean, he never sold out of his advance, so why were we going to pay him? Sorry, we don't owe him anything.
At least nowadays, people can count their streams. Back then with CDs, we couldn't even know how much we sold or didn't sell or whatever. We didn't know anything. We had no way to check.
So when people complain about Spotify being like a black box, it's like, look, it's a hell of a lot better than it used to be. So, I think perspective is super important when having these discussions. And I just wish people would think a little bit more about the power that they have right now as compared to when they had 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
I agree. Do you think it's also part of this is also because back then you kind of only see the successful people and you didn't know about the people that were not successful, right? Nowadays everybody puts music out, so you see the 100 views and the 155 streams, you know? So people can see the people who don't make it. While back then, if you didn't make it, you didn't really, nobody knew about you or your band or your
you
music.
didn't even get to put your album out.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's the thing. It's like you didn't hear about any of these bands because they never got past the gatekeepers.
Yeah. So do you think this is part of it, right? Like nowadays, it's somewhat
100%.
simple to put your music out. So of course there's gonna be more people that fail because, well, not everybody can be successful.
Yeah, and of course by virtue of that, there's more records out and there are more people who are good.
Yeah.
You know, there's sure a lot of crap, but there's also a lot of people who are good who maybe never would have been picked up by a record label. So it's like the signal to noise ratio is just way higher. Whereas like, you know, when I was a kid, it was like, you know, here's one new band that you have to check out like every couple of months. And it's like, I can do that. But then, you know, these days it's like, here's 45 bands for you to check out with your morning coffee. And you're like, I can't listen to this much music.
Yeah, that is definitely true. It's, you know, finding the good stuff that is a problem because there's so much music out there. And it's the same with everything. I mean, social media made this happen everywhere, like videos. Like I teach mixing and mastering, like how now everybody does it. So it's like hard for people to understand what is good and what is not. And half of the battle, even for me, half of the battle is exactly that. It's like going through all the misinformation and clean up. Like, no, that's not the way. And, you know, sometimes people don't want to do that with music. Hopefully the monopoly of the big labels kind of will lose a little bit of its grip, because I think it's kind of sad, just because exactly what you said a minute ago. There's a lot of talented people that, yes, they are out there, but you get like the top 10 Billboard shoved in your face and your playlist every other minute. So, you know, after a while it becomes hard for them to come out.
I think labels certainly have much less power than they used to, and I think that especially the underground music community is so much stronger, so much more democratic, so much more empowered than it's like ever been. And so I'm like happy to let the major labels like do their thing right now. It's like, fine, you know, you wanna invest all of your money in these pop stars, like you go ahead. Like I don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
And that's really the most important point, is that anybody that doesn't want to be Justin Bieber or Taylor Swift or whatever, they don't need a record label at all. Like at all. You know, labels will always be a part of the you know, sort of the music business, of part of the, you know, economy, all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. I think what is cool is that we who don't want to play that game are able to make our careers outside of it, and people who do want to enter that world, they can do it with a little bit more knowledge, because, you know, people like you and me are talking about this. So if some kid is watching this right now thinking like, oh man, I want to be the next Bieber, you know, maybe they'll second guess it because they're like, oh, well, you know, if that's how it is, or they're going to be like, yeah, I don't care. I'll play that game. You know, I'll take that risk. I'll roll the dice. And it's like, if that's what you want, then more power to you. So the information is what really sort of empowers everybody to make more educated decisions about, you know, their career trajectory.
Yeah, that is, I completely agree with you. And it's I think this interview is going well because I'm playing the game that you were talking about with Bella, right? And you're a successful independent artist. So I think we have a vision of both worlds right now. Give me some advice for the independent artist. You are a successful independent artist.
I think that if you want to be a successful independent artist, you need to accept the fact that you're going to have to be as much a business person as you are an artist. And you're going to have to devote just as much time to wearing your business hat as you are wearing your artist hat. Now, I don't think there's any sort of conflict of interest there. A lot of artists have this thing in their head where they're like, yeah, well, what, I don't want to do that. I just want to think about, making art and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's unfair that I have to be a business person. I can't just be an artist. It's like, the way that I view that, it's like, I think you might agree with me. Most people would agree with me that, like, being a chef, cooking is an art, right? Like, okay, I'm a great chef. I want to go open a restaurant. Yeah, but I don't want to worry about like health codes or, having a nice restaurant or anything like that. Like, I don't want to do bookkeeping. If your friend who wanted to open a restaurant told you they don't want to do any of that stuff, you'd think they're crazy.
Yeah.
Right? You'd be like, this is just part of being a business owner.
Yeah.
Like, your art is your business, and you don't have to sacrifice your art for your business. You just have to find some harmony there. And I don't know why we started thinking that like musicians were different than chefs or anything like that, but I think it's 100% the same. So be a great musician, be a great business person, and always keep those two things in mind. And I think if you do that, then you'll be okay. The third thing I would add is be grateful for what you have, because I think the biggest mistake that I made when I was trying to sort of establish myself as an artist is I never took care of the fans that I had. I only worried about the fans that I didn't have.
Yeah.
And once I realized that if I actually sort of took care of, the people that I already had, gave them my attention and time and effort and energy, that like it grows on its own. And it is really the best thing that I ever did. So I think so many artists worry about like what they don't have. It's like, think about what you do have, be grateful for it, cultivate it, help it grow.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you are and what position you are, like a big artist, medium artist, whatever it is. And it doesn't even matter how much promotion you throw at a given artist. At the end of the day, it is still the people and your fans that decide your success. And at the end of the day, it's always if people shares it that will make, because you can't beat that. You can't beat millions and millions and billions of people out there that they like your music and they send it to their friends and say, hey, listen to this, it's like awesome. You can't pay for that, really.
Yeah, I'll tell you a great example of that. It's just a quick little story. I was really skeptical about getting into crowdfunding because I didn't want to seem like somebody who's like, please, sir, can I have some more, right? But my wife talked me into doing it, and we went back and forth with all the different platforms, and we decided that Patreon was the best one. So I went into it very, very skeptical, but over the years, I sort of realized that it's really about the relationship that you have with the people who really care about your music. And the more time that I spent with them, the more it didn't even feel like a job, right? It wasn't like, oh my God, I have to go and service these people. It was like something you enjoy doing because this is like your community, people who really care about what it is that you do. And now I've got this awesome community of almost 700 people. I've got a number of really super diehard dedicated fans. And one of them, her name is Roz. She's in the UK. She's amazing. She set a goal for herself to get me 200 reaction videos on YouTube. So she goes and she finds every single YouTuber who does song reactions, whatever, and she sends them my new songs without fail. And she's collected 170, 180
That's amazing.
Reaction videos for me on YouTube. I mean, that's not anything I could pay a paid PR person to do. But she does this because she loves my music and she has fun doing it. And it's just been so awesome watching this happen. And it's this is what it's about. It's not about getting any kind of, any specific point of success. It's really about the journey and growing and seeing kind of what happens when you water your plants, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. The definition of success, it's people have a different, definition of it. For some people, like probably you and me, success is like being proud of what you do and the stuff that you put out, enjoy the journey, and maybe leave some behind that has some value. And I think sometimes artists that are not educated on like how the legal part works, so the contracts and everything, they kind of just go and sign whatever because of fame. That's the thing, right? They don't even think about the money. Maybe they just think about the popularity and get the likes and get the dopamine rush that you get when you like have like 1 million fans on it. Which is like monopoly money though, because it doesn't really pay you anything.
I believe that wholeheartedly, and I think just one other point to add to the idea of artists saying that they only want to be an artist and not have to worry about business. Like, I often wonder if this was just some sort of narrative that was cooked up by the industry to keep artists dumb so that they don't understand what's in their contracts. They're just like, no, man, let us just take care of it. Just sign this here. We'll handle all the business. You just go do cocaine and make great music. And they're like, okay.
Yeah, if you think about it, it would be smart. It is smart, you know? Because on one hand, you put them on this pedestal. Like, you're an artist. You only have to be, you know, thinking you only need to be worried about making art. And we think about, we think about everything else. And well, of course, at that point, they have all the power and everything.
Feed the ego and keep them dumb so that we can take everything, right? It's crazy.
It worked on many, many cases. Yeah, if you take a look at all the most successful, and I'll throw it, even the richest stars out there, they have their head in the business like 100%, you know?
Yeah.
None of the super successful one, they are like, oh no, I'm just an artist. No. They are like hands-on. They're all side businesses all the time, and they hammer that a lot more than they hammer the music, which, you know, sometimes it's a bad thing because their music suffers from it, and it's like,
for sure,
the quality is, but that also is the game, you know? When you have like millions of fans, you can kind of all right, you can get away with a lot. Let's put it this way. What do you think is gonna be the future, like the next 5 to 10 years for the streaming services?
I don't see streaming going anywhere, but I've heard some people talk about how like video is going to be a little bit more an important part of it. So I wouldn't be surprised with Spotify now, like sort of integrating the video end of their podcast, right? So it's like Rogan, you can also watch the video player from within Spotify. Maybe Spotify is going to sort of integrate music videos and all of that kind of stuff. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. I've heard also that Spotify is going to become a little bit more social media driven. So there's going to have like the artist page will be much more like a social media page, like an Instagram page. You can have stories and posts and all of that kind of stuff. I can totally see actually Spotify just integrating more with social media rather than streaming stopping being like the dominant way people consume music.
The video integration will be a big hit for YouTube, which right now is still the number one place where people listen to music, believe it or not, because of the search engine and everything. And I think it's probably a good guess that Spotify and all the other platforms at this point will lean towards becoming more social media page, because at the end of the day, the beautiful thing that we have today, the people have today, is they can actually connect with the artists, which they couldn't before, which kind of helped creating the superstardom status. But at the same time, things are changed, and the fact that today people can interact with their artists, with their favorite artists, is also very helpful for independent artists, especially because, like you said, you build a community. Like, in a way, is the same thing that we do on YouTube, on our channel. So like, I have 12,000 subscribers, and it's my family, and it's great to see your community, build and grow. And then they were talking about one of the last things, and then I'll let you go because I took a lot of your time today. They were saying that labels will start losing power and control over Spotify and other streaming services, because Spotify will reach to artists directly. And they say, no, we don't want to become a label and everything, but I think that could probably be a good thing. Like you said, we start from the premise that it's not perfect and it ain't gonna be perfect anytime soon. Yeah. So it's like the less of the two evil, right? So I think,
of course,
cutting the middleman, so to speak, could benefit the artist and could be one way for them to be paid slightly more, fairly.
If we continue on this trend and Spotify continues to get continues to grow and they get so big that they don't even need the labels anymore, that could get interesting. That could get very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for now, the labels, it's funny because they kind of need each other, Because think about if Universal takes all their catalogs off Spotify. They would be in trouble. But at the same time, they kind of need Spotify because Spotify is the #1 streaming platform. So it's going to be interesting to see how it develops. But I think, at this point, it could be interesting to see streaming platforms cutting deals and deal directly with the artist and cutting a label out. That would be like a oh shit moment, I think. Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
that could be spicy.
Daniel, thank you so much for this. I think this was like a really, really cool interview, a really cool perspective from a successful independent artist like yourself. And guys, if you don't know the band Aesthetic Perfection, I'll put the links in the info box down below. What is your latest release?
So, due to the current situation, I haven't really been able to tour. So my goal in 2021 this year was to write and release a song every 4 weeks. So I actually just completed my 12 songs in 12 months project. You can stream them all on Spotify. Well, actually, every single streaming platform there is, they're all available right now. I'll be releasing a limited edition physical release of that sometime early next year. And what the future holds after that, can only God knows.
All right. That sounds amazing. I will put all the links down below, guys. Thank you, Daniel. Check him out on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, whatever, all the media. We're going to put everything there. I hope to talk to you again and to work with you again sometime soon. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure. Take care.
Guys, thank you for watching. If you have any question for me, for Daniel, leave it in the comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. See you next time.
Hands on my neck, hands grip my throat. Lift me up.